Hello, I am Dr. Vaijanta Anand. Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Associate Professor with Nirmala Niketan College of Social Work, which is affiliated to University of Mumbai. We are looking at the course Community Organization, and particularly this particular lesson looks at ethical dilemmas in community practice and their resolution in community practice, which is part of the course Community Organization, which is again part of the subject Social Work Education. What will this module address itself to? We are basically looking at concept of ethical practices in community organization. We'll be looking at ethical dilemmas which might emerge while working in the community, and also tools which will help us to resolve this ethical dilemmas, or what kind of decision will be ethical when we are working in the community, and how do you develop community based model for practice for any kind of community based practice. So that is what we will be looking at in this module. Again, NASW Code of Ethics, it guides community practice ethics also, but one need to understand that often these code of ethics, they fall short in addressing actual ethical concerns of the community organizers. Why? Because areas of conflict of interest of various stakeholders may not have been addressed, or the choice of tactics for implementation of programs, there might be a problem with regard to that, or there might be concerns arising from value of conflicts, because the person who is working in the community may have a set of values, and the values which are followed or which are practiced in the community may be different. So there might be value conflicts, and the issue of informed consent may come in, which need to be addressed. So let us look at some of the code of ethics, but keeping this in mind that they may not sufficiently address all the issues which might emerge when you're looking at ethics, but it will give you a kind of a guideline in terms of how do you resolve if there is an ethical dilemma. When you're talking about conflict of interest, they can occur at various levels. How it would occur is basically because at the time of collection of information, you might not have used appropriate mechanisms. Suppose you're working with different religious groups as a diverse groups. If your informant has a bias against a particular community and may inform you keeping that bias in mind, you might not get an appropriate kind of information about the group. Suppose the person who is showing you the community or is talking to you about community dynamics, may say that okay, this group is not important. Like for example, if you're talking about again some disasters or displaced groups. So if they have been displaced or lost land because of some kind of developmental project, so the leader or the person who is accompanying you may tell you that landless Dalit people are not impacted. So landless marginalized group needn't even be approached because they have not lost land because of the development project. You might follow that, and you might not go in depth in terms of understanding how these development projects have impacted various communities, and later on realize that Dalit community is the one which has been impacted much more than other communities, because they have lost opportunities of earning because other people have lost their land. So one has to keep in mind that this conflict may arise because you do not have appropriate mechanism of collecting information. At the time of mobilizing material and recruiting human resources, there might be a conflict because people who are helping you in mobilizing resources may come from different groups who are in competition with each other or who are in conflict with each other. Another conflict may also arise because there is interpersonal dynamics. If suppose you are working with the women's group, Okay, and the men of the community may not like that you are focusing only on the women. Or youth, among the youth there might be groups belonging to different kind of religions or regional group, and may not like you working with one particular region, or may be in conflict with each other because of the interpersonal dynamics. Okay, so whenever you're talking about membership in a target community, this is a contested area. I mean, what exactly is your understanding of the community? Who are the members of the community? Unless you get an understanding of all these things, you will not be able to understand who exactly are going to be your participants, or who will be with you when you're talking about community organization. How close can you get to the community? In some places, probably in some of the countries, they may say that you cannot be very close. Okay, you should not be close at all. Okay, does this closeness become a barrier, or or is it affecting your objective decision making? It's very important to understand this. How does it work? If you're very close, probably there is a bias in favor of friends. Probably there is a bias with regard to relatives. Probably you belong to a similar kind of community. If suppose your own background is that you have come from a particular kind of community and you're working in a community, probably your own relatives or neighbors or people from the same background or gender or ethnicity may be there in the community, and you function with a bias. If suppose you are a woman and you're working on the issues related with the women, you are going with a bias where you have closed yourself completely to all the issues or problems faced by the men in the community. There might be genuine kind of issues which men are posing, which you are not able to look at it, basically because you have a basic bias, because you are a woman, and you are working with the women. It might happen the other way around, because you are a man and you are not able to look at the point of view of a woman, because basically you don't even see them as participants in a community organization. So organizers who work within their own culture and within their own demographic group may need to be careful in evaluating their own personal goals. So if I belong to the same community and I am working in the same community, I may not be able to get information because I function with a bias which is inbuilt in me. So ethical considerations are important when you are examining various kinds of tactical options if you are facing this issue. Sometimes you might have a financial conflict of interest. If suppose you are talking about social entrepreneurship and you are basically going into the community with a particular model which is like community business. So what are you doing basically is you're bringing together constituents and institutions which your organization probably is promoting, and it requires development of social network and exchange of information and goods and services. But patronizing certain businesses over others may generate conflict. So you might feel that this particular organization which is providing services may be a better option, whereas community may bring up some other options which they think is more viable or which they think will be more helpful, and this might lead to ethical dilemmas where there will be conflict, and you might have to process yourself, your thinking in terms of what is much more in the long run sustainable and what is much more acceptable in the community. So this is one conflict of interest which you may come across. Sometimes personal relationship and friendships within the constituents may become an obstacle. So determining appropriate personal boundaries is very important. Especially what happens is when you develop friendship with the members of the community because you want information, because you want to understand culture, lifestyle of the community members. But trusting relationship might even extend to attending birthday parties or attending weddings or going for parties which are happening. But what is the organizer's role in all this? Is it necessary to attend all these kind of occasions? Especially when you are working very much into community organization model, you have to keep in mind that you have to be with the people when they are facing crisis in their life. So it's very much important that you are there when there are issues like deaths, when there are issues like disasters, or any kind of crisis which the community is facing. At the same time, one has to identify which are the festivals you want to be part of. It would be a good idea to avoid personal kind of occasions which probably may not help you in terms of enhancing your role as a community organizer, and may only associate you with particular kind of persons. So should you attend wedding and birthday parties? It depends on how many people and which particular group in the community is organizing this, and whether it will be beneficial for you in terms of your role as an organizer. So organizer also needs to have an appropriate boundary, because that boundary especially helps you to understand what exactly is your role in the community. So the code of ethics helps you to set up these boundaries. How far are you ready to go? How far are you, for example, you might even think that, okay, if I'm going to the community, I go to people, in their houses, I sit and eat with them, I almost like live with them. What are the boundaries over there? Okay, the boundaries are when you are being with them, how helpful it is for you to enhance participative or democratic functioning in the community, or is it that you just become a popular person in the community? If that is the goal of becoming popular, it won't help you later on when you are leading the community towards participative or democratic process. When you're talking about choice of tactics, they are short-term actions which are used to carry out strategic intervention, as Monrose or Wilson had said in 1994. Some of the tactical methods may violate social norms or put the community and members of opposition group at risk. Okay, two types of activities which are problematic for the organizers is use of confrontational tactics. Okay, it would mean that you're on a construction site and there has been some accident, and construction workers feel that you should represent them and take up that issue. That would mean you are coming in conflict with the builders who have allowed you to work in the community. Or there is some kind of a land encroachment issue where the landlord is feeling that he has a right on a particular piece of land, which probably a particular marginalized group feels that that land belongs to them. So in such kind of situation, you need to prepare yourself that this is a confrontation and I have to use confrontational tactics. Okay, there is also potentially sacrificing short-term benefit for long-term goals. Probably short-term wise, you might not benefit much. You might lose, a builder may get angry with you because you have taken this kind of stand. In short-term goal of being good with the builder may, you might lose that. Or, you might suddenly come in conflict with the, landlord of the village because you have suddenly taken this kind of a stand. But in terms of long-term goals, it establishes you with the marginalized groups later on who would be probably looking forward to developing their own capacities for confrontation. So therefore, the choices of tactics must be carefully evaluated in terms of at what stage are you taking up these kind of stands, and whether you are fulfilling short-term or long-term, and what are the pros and consequences. So in the initial stage, when you are entering into the community, it might be foolhardy to take confrontational tactics. But once you have established and you can afford to be in bad books of the the perpetrators of the exploitation, probably then you might be able to take a conflicting kind of a tactics. So ethical dilemmas again come into this space. Then there is also value conflict, you know. Organizers need to evaluate specific ethical values and assess personal risks and benefits before acting to resolve conflict. For instance, if an organization chooses local grassroots or local grassroots organization or traditional community leaders, will they be able to uphold the value of self-determination for the individual and groups of the community? Whether this local organization actually representative of the people they are claiming to be representing is something which you need to look at. Probably it has happened in some of the places where you felt that you want to work with denotified or notified tribe. And in one particular, for example, it has happened, this particular notified tribe has converted themselves into one particular religion, okay, a minority religion. And there is organization which is promoting a majority religion. Suppose they are belonging to Hindu group and they would like to promote Hindu as a religion. And the notified tribe, because they felt that they would be, probably they felt affinity and they have converted them into Christianity. You have got to know that they have converted into Christianity and they are benefiting a lot being associated with Christian, organizations. And the organization which is claiming to work with notified tribe and promoting Hindu as a religion, whether you would like to give them all the information with regard to this notified tribe which you have discovered, which is basically belonging to a particular, they have accepted a particular religion. This is an ethical dilemma. If you have discovered this notified tribe which is basically accepting a particular religion on their own, and if they are benefiting, reporting that to this organization just because they are working with the notified tribe may become conflictual later on, basically because this particular group may attack the notified group which has accepted a minority religion. So in that case, the dilemma has to be resolved that whom are you getting associated with. If you are talking about that self-determination is something which you actually are going to practice, then this particular notified tribe might have accepted a particular religion for their own reason. Informing about that to an organization which particularly proposes or propagates a particular majority religion may not work out in the long run. So that is where you have to come to a conclusion, okay, I'll work with this notified group separately, keeping their issues and their needs in mind, but I might not look at this organization which claims to work with notified but which propagates a majority religion as a particular representative organizations. So this is the kind of decision which is involved when you are talking about value conflict and taking a decision what should be your position. Several tools or framework helps organizers when dealing with conflict or complex solution. When you are looking at this kind of frameworks, theoretically decision making framework has been derived from NASW Code of Ethics for the use of community practitioners. Lowenberg and Dolgoff in 1996 developed an ethical rule screen which determines whether principles in the code apply to the ethical dilemma examined, and in situation is not identified in the codes or if two or more ethical clashes occur, ethical rule screen can be applied and one can see how this rule screen can help us to resolve the ethical dilemmas. Basically, principles in the screen are to be applied in descending order. So what you need to keep in mind, as I gave example earlier, if denotified tribe who have converted them into Christianity are having a threat of life, if they are brought into the notice of an organization which believes that these converting into Christianity is wrong, that means you are actually developing a threat for life. So your first principle is protection of life. So if any group with whom you are working, if their life is under threat, you need to take a decision which will minimize the threat to life. That is your first principle which we need to keep in mind. The next principle is equality and inequality. If you are able to see that organization is not practicing equality, you are able to see that there is inequality. So one has to keep in mind that principle of equality and identifying inequality is something which is your goal. A community may not see it, but you are able to see it, then you have to follow that particular principle. The third principle is autonomy and freedom. In a village, probably decisions with regard to village, okay, with regard to it might be open defecation free kind of programs, or it might be socio-economic programs, or it might be building dams in the village. In all these spaces, is there freedom and autonomy of every single group which is part of the entire community? If it is not, then you have to take the stand that there has to be autonomy and freedom for all the groups to participate. So autonomy and freedom becomes one guiding principle which will help you to take proper ethical decision. Least harm. In any kind of conflictual situation, sometimes you might work with two religious groups which are in the same community, staying nearby, okay. So, and there is a community conflict, or there are issues which will lead to community conflict, you have to take a kind of a way in which least harm is done. So you are looking for non-violent, completely peaceful kind of spaces, developing dialogues which will minimize the harm, whereby two groups which are in loggerheads with each other can sit together and resolve. Like in Mumbai, with regard to community conflicts, mohalla communities, or what you call is the lanes where people stay, they have developed their own community associations where both the conflicted community members come together and resolve the conflict at their own level. So even if there is a larger conflict happening somewhere, even if there is communal riots, probably at the grassroots they are able to develop some kind of cooperative living where the conflict is minimized and the harm is least in terms of human loss or in terms of any kind of injury to the people. Quality of life is very important, whereby you look at whether my decision will enhance the quality of the life of the people or it will reduce the quality of life of people. So wherever I am working, if I am facing an ethical dilemma, I should look at it in terms of whom is it benefiting. Is it improving the quality of life of the constituents of that community? So it might be like, a dam may benefit in terms of generating employment, or that is what is promised. But if it is taking away the ecological cover, it is taking away the forest, and it is taking away completely the resources or sources which are part of the livelihood, choices which the people have made, then definitely quality of life of the people is more important than the larger goal of providing employment to the people. Privacy and confidentiality, as I had given earlier example, people confide in you, they tell you what their issues are, keeping that as confidential, maintaining privacy, especially when you are working with conflictual groups, it becomes very essential, because that trust which they have put in you probably will help you to safeguard their safety, as well as safeguard their autonomy and their ability to participate in the larger interest of the community. So it might be that women may come and talk to you and confide in you about the issues like domestic violence or larger issues which are affecting them. Unless and until the whole women's group come together to resolve it, probably keeping many of these kind of issues confidential when you're dealing with community level issues is essential. Truthfulness and full disclosure. Many times the community organizer may have their own goals or their own hidden kind of agenda, which probably I might feel that ethically they are correct, because that is what is going to lead some kind of change. But it's not healthy, because I need to be truthful, I need to have full disclosure. Like I'll give example, like, if suppose, I am working with the, Muslim community, or, a religious community which I don't belong to. So do I hide my identity because that would give me more acceptance? Not telling them that I am, non-Christian or non-Muslim, going there as a Muslim person or dressing up in that way would be not in the long run not feasible or not a good idea. So full disclosure that, even though I'm working in a Muslim community in a communal rights situation, but I belong to Hindu community, and I acknowledge that my community has been a reason basically for the community conflict. In spite of that, I follow a particular set of ethics and values, and with that intention I would be working with you is much more useful when you are facing this kind of dilemmas. So when you are working in the Muslim community, understand the religion, but also accept what or where you have come from, and disclose fully to the community that yes, I belong to a Hindu majority community. Yes, I belong to a community which probably must have caused problems, but at the same time I believe that this communal rights can be minimized if we are able to come across, sit with each other and minimize the conflict. So that is something which is very much essential. So what are the tools for making ethical decisions in practice? Identify the ethical principle that applies to the situation in hand. What is the ethical principle which you would like to uphold? Is it, you're talking about inequality or, equality? Is it, looking at least harm? Okay, so collect additional information necessary to examine the ethical dilemma in the question. Okay, who is approaching you, for what purpose? Okay, will help you a lot in taking decision what exactly is going to, is the conflict and how do you resolve it. Identify the relevant values, or the hierarchy, or look at put all the values which are coming in conflict and apply that in terms of what exactly you need to uphold. You also need to identify potential conflicts of interest and people who are likely to benefit from such conflict. Once you identify who is going to benefit, in itself will help you to resolve the ethical dilemmas, whether you would like that group to benefit or you would like to for the other group to benefit. There itself you will be able to resolve the issue. Identify appropriate ethical rules and rank order, which we saw in the deciding form. In that you look at rank order in terms of where exactly is the conflict you're facing and what you need to uphold. So definitely you need to uphold protection of life rather than third or fourth value where you're talking about equality, or where you're talking about autonomy and freedom. So if autonomy and freedom of one particular group may lead to harm of life, or may come in conflict with protection of life, definitely protection of life takes precedence, not autonomy or freedom. Identify appropriate ethical rules and rank order, as I said earlier, and determine the consequence of applying these ethical rules. What will it lead to? Will it lead to physical harm? Will it lead to equitable society? Will it lead to resolving of the conflict, or will it lead to aggravating the situation? Those are the guiding principles which will help you to take a ethical decision. So different organizers achieve different outcomes through this kind of a model, where you are able to develop a kind of a screen and see yourself, okay, these are the conflicts I am facing, this is how I have to rank order them, and this is how I need to resolve. The problem solving approach of Resch and Lowe can be used in conjunction with ethical rule screen, which we looked at, which was derived from Code of Ethics by Lowenberg and Dolgoff. Other principles such as mutual learning and empowerment can be added by the organizers that reflect the organizers' own values, the seriousness of the issues which are addressed, and the preferences and culture of the participants. So this could help to develop a personal ethical framework. So what is essential is, what are my ethical framework? What am I learning by being with the community? many times my own biases and prejudices will dissolve, or which will get will get resolved when I am exposed more and more to the community culture and differences which are there between my values and the community values. And once that get resolved, I am able to understand what exactly is the value framework I need to adopt while working in this particular community, which follows a different kind of value framework. So this could help to develop a as I said, a kind of a framework which is suitable for me to work in the community organization. This is the paradigm which you need to look at. If you are an organizer where you think that you are solely responsible for the consequence, if you're feeling that you're solely responsible for addressing the problem, and you will be determining who benefits from it. If that is the kind of a space you are in, okay, and you're facing an ethical dilemma, how would you resolve it? If you feel you're determining everything, then you need to confront the ethical dilemma which you are facing. So once you confront the ethical dilemma, what do? You identify relevant ethical conflictual kind of values and various kinds of things which you are facing, the conflicts which you are facing. Then you identify, when you identify, you rank order it, you are able to look at which exactly are the two values which are coming in conflict. Then once you develop a kind of a hierarchy, or able to look at two values which are coming in conflict with each other, then you are able to apply the ethical rules. You are able to look at the hierarchy of various ethical rules which you need to follow, and consequence of this is you are applying this framework to come to a resolution. Okay, if my two values are coming in conflict, what particular value I need to uphold? Based on that, alternative list of ethical rules may emerge, where I develop my own personal ethical kind of framework, and accordingly then I am able to take help from the mentors, I am able to take help from supervisors, from the people who have earlier faced these kind of dilemmas, and develop this kind of framework and resolve and take a decision. Okay. If suppose I am feeling that I am not the one who is going to determine, I am not the one who is responsible to come to resolve the conflict, but I am doing it with the people. So if that is a situation, then it is the issue is raised with the community or with the constituency group members who are directly affected, and the organizers may participate in discussion or debate on the issue, but may not be solely responsible for the decision. For example, there was a case where a woman organizer was working on a particular kind of in a particular kind of a community which basically had a lot of single men who were working. The men categorically told the organizer that because she is a woman, they do not think she is capable of leading them or providing any kind of guidance to them, because they don't think women are capable of giving any kind of guidance. Now in this kind of a conflict where the community is directly telling a community organizer that you are a woman, that's why we do not want you to come and lead us or provide us any kind of leadership, the dilemma is, what do you follow? You can withdraw the women organizer and send a man or a male organizer, which will fulfill the need of the community, but which also leads you giving an impression that you are compromising, where you yourself believe that men and women are equal and it doesn't matter who the organizer is. Or you feel that I need to sit with the community and resolve it. If you are feeling that I am the person who is going to face the problems, and if you feel that okay, this is the conflict which I face, either I take a decision that it doesn't matter, people initially may not like her, but I force the woman organizer to work in the community even if she is facing hostility, and take the consequences whatever consequences come in. Or if I feel that at this stage my person who is a female organizer should not face these kind of hostility, so I withdraw her, or I might introduce a male organizer and resolve the conflict. But if I feel that it's the community which basically takes the decision, probably I will be able to sit with the community, discuss with them that she is the organizer who comes with this kind of a skills or this kind of information or this kind of knowledge base, who has had experience of working with different kind of other communities, and she comes as an expert. So if it is possible for them to accept her as an expert going beyond her gender, and if this ethical dilemma can be resolved by putting forth that you need to accept, irrespective of being male and female, this is a person, a organizer who comes with experience and will be helpful in the long term. Okay, so this resolution will actually involve talking with the community, bringing the community organizer into the space where they are able to examine themselves whether this particular person is expert enough to be able to help them, and a resolution that either you continue working with that group of men with the woman leader, or you take a decision that okay, if they do not want, withdraw and say that okay, we can work with you only if you are able to resolve this, or else we will go to some other community. So this is the thing which ethical dilemmas, this is the way you can be able to resolve a particular kind of ethical dilemma. Informed consent involves informing the participants about the likely consequences of participation and giving them full freedom in terms of whether they can participate or they want to withdraw. Okay, so informed consent often requires clients to sign written statements which list the benefits and risk associated with specific interventions. Like if they are forming a kind of a trade union, or if they are forming a kind of a organization which is taking up issues which in long run they might get in conflict with the government organization or government authority, then they should be able to look at all these conflict situation and give kind of consent, informed consent. But if you have organized the people and later on you realize that actually they did not realize that the conflict will lead to confrontation with particular authorities, then probably you have not been able to understand that ethically you should have informed them what the consequences are. Another, the procedures used by organizers to obtain consent involves a meeting of all the members, discussing and debating the risk and benefits of the proposed action. It might be, suppose you feel that you might organize a group of people to take action against a particular service which is provided, which is not reaching to them or which is not accessible. So if you are organizing these people actually to take confrontation with the service provider, then you need to tell them what the consequences will be. It might lead to arrest of the people. It might lead to the authority taking up some kind of action against them. They need to know what these consequences will be. But it is not that all this is free of flaws, because sometime consultation may not include everybody. Okay, they may not have all the potential participants, and later on probably conflicts will still arise. Okay, so what you have looked at in the whole module is that you need to understand the ethical concerns which will emerge in the community practice. Be prepared for these kind of conflicts which will emerge. You need to look at value framework and principles and ethical practice, which will help you to come to a conclusion with regard to resolution of these ethical conflicts. And you should be able to develop your own community-based ethical model, which will help you to be effective in a community development practice.